Buonasera. What a beautiful, beautiful venue. This might actually be the most beautiful stage I've ever presented from. So I would like to thank you all for this invitation to join you once again in this beautiful town at this incredible event that now I think has taken a place in social enterprise history. You're all very welcome wherever you've come from. This is the place where hope manifests in our current world of many, many crises and troubles. You're all very, very welcome here in Todi. I would also just like to acknowledge the fact that in this very complex world, there are many, many people that can't be with us today, and there are people that would have dearly loved to have been here today. Social enterprise knows no boundaries, and yet our world is full of them. And so there are people that would love to have been here today from Ukraine, from Palestine, from Lebanon, from Israel, from Russia, who are all working towards a better world, who can't be with us. And I would just like you to take a moment to think about them and their circumstances, and perhaps send them a message on social media using the SEOC hashtag to know that they are remembered by you all today. I'd also just like to say that the kind of how can we build an economy fit for the future? I'm not sure I'm the best qualified person to answer that, but I'm going to give it a go. I think so often it's easy to think about the problems the world faces and to acknowledge them and to see them. What I've learned over the years of working in social enterprise is that it's easier to sometimes be a protester and to demonstrate against the things that we see that are not right, rather than to try and address the complex problems and actually find the resolution that we need. Now, I used to be a little baby. I know that's very, very hard to believe. That's with my lovely dad. I then went to become a protester. And I protested against many, many things. I protested against discrimination, against apartheid, deforestation, all these things. What do? You take to the streets. Unfortunately, growing old does suck, and sometimes it means actually, as you get older, you have to be a bit more pragmatic, and sometimes you have to sit down and build relationships, even with people, if I'm honest, that you don't like very much. This is actually in Milan, back in 2014, I think, 15 perhaps, where we held the Social Enterprise World Forum in Milan, and I had the burden, not the privilege, the burden of breaking bread with David Cameron, a former Prime Minister. Now, for those of you that don't know UK politics, that was, that was maybe 6 Prime Ministers ago. In just 7 years, one of the most kind of stable democracies in the world has changed very, very rapidly into a chaotic right-wing nightmare. Don't let this happen to your country, people. It already has, I hear people saying. Well, look, never give up hope, right? We can always, always, always do better, and we must believe in better. Now, this is a slide, right? And I've used this slide for the last 10 years. But I think that's okay, right? Because we're all into reuse and recycling. What it shows you, though, I think, is the speed at which change has happened. The speed. How old is the Earth? Does anyone know how old the Earth is? 43 billion, 4-point-something billion years old. Let's just say it's very, very old. And in just the last 200 years of human development, we have seen almost stability turn into this rapid increase in change and transformation, which, of course, has driven living standards across the world, has diminished the absolute poverty that exists in the world, but has still come with many, many, many consequences. And alongside those increases in foreign investment, motor vehicles, species extinctions, population, GDP, we have also seen a consistent and almost unstoppable growth in inequality. Now, I believe that there are people in this room that would also believe that some of our biggest climate challenges have an opportunity to be addressed. We are advancing science and technology. We are transitioning our energy infrastructure, maybe too slowly for some, but we are beginning to see that there is a way to produce the energy that the world requires using renewable means, perhaps achievable within the next 10 to 20 years. But very few people talk about inequality. And inequality is a fascinating issue. Because when we talk about wealth inequality, we talk about money. We also must acknowledge that with money comes power. And so what we see are an increasing number of white, old blokes. I know, I'm not that far away from being one of them, but not in terms of wealth, but in terms of looks. And what we see is this huge, huge increase and concentration of wealth. And this is one of the things that we need to talk about more as a global population, because our future economy somehow has to address this issue. And this is a fundamental issue that we have to tackle. And no one's talking about it because actually, really, everyone is willing to replace their perhaps coal-fired source of heat for their homes with something that is renewable. But are people willing to give up money and power? Where in history has this happened? Any ideas? Has it ever? Unfortunately, not really, unless there's been some bloody revolution, like in France or in other parts of the world where they have decided to revolt. And we all recognise the human impact of bloody revolutions. We have to find a way to transition our economy to a better functioning system that can generate prosperity for all. Now, what we recognise is that 6% of the world's wealth is shared by about 70% of the world's population, and 94% of the world sits with those that are left, 26%. But actually, it's 0.6% of the world's population that control over 50% of the world's wealth. That's an extraordinary number. And do you know how long it might take someone like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos to spend their money? Well, if they spent £2 million every single day for the rest of their lives, they still wouldn't spend even 10% of their money. That's an extraordinary figure, isn't it? So, the reason we've had a global economic crisis and the reason the world assumes, the World Economic Forum believes that there will be more global economic crises, is because when you put so much wealth and so much power in the hands of so few people, any decisions they take, whether to withdraw money, to change their investment portfolio, to bet against a currency, can have huge global implications. And it means that within this little community of ultra-wealthy people sits the power to control the economic stability of the world. And this is a lesson, actually, that we learned in the run-up to the Second World War. When people got together after the Second World War at Bretton Woods, the world leaders agreed that they had to control the flow of capital in order to protect world peace. In those post-war years, those enlightened leaders who set up the Bretton Woods Agreement have seen those principles diminish and be eroded every decade since. Now, we're not just grappling with an issue of kind of inequality crisis. Did you know that despite your best efforts to replace your tote bags with cotton rather than plastic, or your drinking straws with metal instead of plastic, last year we produced more single-use disposable plastic as a world than any year previous in human history. So even sometimes we think that we're making progress when we're actually not. And we assume that we will have more and more contagions and pandemics and impacts on human health. And this is the first time in human history where life expectancy across the globe is actually beginning to diminish. These are difficult times, And it's not even as if our criminal justice systems, our principles of fairness are working well. The people with the most blood on their hands, the people that have committed the biggest crimes, are still escaping prison. This is my dream of what the future economy, the future world might actually look like. But ladies and gentlemen, we are a long, long way away from it. Do you think maybe in my lifetime, do you think he'll face prison? I hope so. And let's just talk about the climate for a little bit, because the climate, I believe, is inextricably linked to issues of inequality and poverty. It's very, very difficult to tell poor people that they should change their behaviours when simply their horizon might only be a week into the future. Their horizon is about feeding their children, finding water to sustain them over the next few days or hours, asking them to make decisions that will improve the planetary health over their lifetimes is much, much more difficult, and which is why we so desperately need to tackle so many issues around poverty and inequality. And of course, I'm sure good people like you and me have taken to the streets. Everyone here wants to see some social change, some environmental change. They want to see a fairer, kinder world. Am I right? Well, you could be a bit more enthusiastic. Like, the whole of the future of the world sits on your shoulders. And so if that's the level of enthusiasm we're generating, goodness knows, we really are stuffed. So, do you want to see the change in the world? Yeah. That's a bit more like it. Has anyone heard of this notion of climate depression? Yeah, it's increasingly affecting young people. Is it any wonder that we have a mental health epidemic around the world? More and more people requiring medication and therapy when we have to not just deal with the issues of climate crisis and inequality, but the impact of those issues on housing, work security, on life in general are a huge burden for any person to carry. And it's not just me saying this. You might think that who's he? I thought all the people from Britain were very, very conservative. Well, you might be forgiven for thinking that, but we're not. But it's not just me, some kind of, social entrepreneur from London that's saying it. We've got Lawrence D. Fink, who's the chairman of BlackRock, the biggest hedge fund in the world, saying the same. Here we've got capitalism isn't working and people are pissed off, says a UK government minister. There is a recognition that the systems are failing. The traditional mechanisms upon which we build security, prosperity, are not working as they should. And they are in fact deteriorating. This is where it kind of ends, right? Scarcer and scarcer resources. More and more scarce resources. More and more people fighting for those resources. Right. This is the future if we're not careful. But we have an opportunity to rethink things. As I said, the principles of business and trade have actually only emerged in just the last 150 years. And all of that complex kind of infrastructure around commerce, business, finance, international trade, globalization, these are fairly new constructs in human history. And if they were designed in the last 150 years, surely we can redesign them again. That's possible, isn't it? Yeah. Loving your enthusiasm today. Now, there are reasons to be hopeful, right? And the reasons to be hopeful is that we are recognizing the challenges. We are beginning, as a world, which is a big, big achievement, to come together and just agree on something. Here, we spent many, many years. In fact, more carbon was created discussing the SDGs than the carbon that's been saved as a consequence of them. And we are making very, very poor progress, ladies and gentlemen. Every single target we set ourselves, we fail, right? But I believe in the power of people. It's the thing that has changed this world time and time again. I can remember growing up in 1980s Britain, and I can remember Margaret Thatcher. Remember her? Well, some of you are way too young, but I can remember Margaret Thatcher calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Right? He was trying to challenge the dominance of apartheid in his country. And Margaret Thatcher called him a terrorist. And I believe that actually it was people like me, very simple acts of defiance, of demonstration, of writing to the press, of raising these issues, with the, of course, combined efforts of people within South Africa, the neighbouring countries around South Africa, coming together that brought down apartheid. And if we can bring down apartheid, which was and should have been a transference of wealth and power from the oppressors to the oppressed, then we can do that all over again. And that's why I remain hopeful. The power sits with us, and it's the decisions we make, not just as consumers, not just as investors, but as people running businesses. Now, Albert Einstein, even older than Margaret Thatcher, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And this is why I believe this is fundamentally an issue of bad design. We need to design an economy, we need to design our systems and structures to enable us to traverse the huge, huge impending challenges that we face. This is a design issue. Well, why does design matter? Why design matters is because you can never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And it was Henry T. Ford, I think, the founder of the Ford Motor Company car, that said, you know, if it wasn't for different design thinking, people would have just wanted a faster horse. Sometimes we have to really disrupt traditional, conventional thinking and design. And I believe that social business, social enterprise is doing just that. What we're doing is, for hundreds of years now, we've put profit, finance, as the primary purpose in all of our business transactions and activities. What about if we put environmental protection, human flourishment, as the principal motivations and purposes within our businesses, rather than profit maximisation? What would happen? How would decisions be taken differently within business and within banks if that was our primary purpose? Well, the good news is, it's already happening. I know lots of people in this room, some of whom I love, some of whom I merely like. But on the whole, you're all here because you are people that are putting that primary purpose around human flourishment, shared prosperity, environmental sustainability into the design of the businesses, the investment houses that you run. That's what gives me hope. The human brain is an amazing, and poorly understood organ. And actually, we know that when we fill it with the world's problems and challenges, and all these colourful dots are the SDGs, that we can, if we want to, turn that chaos into something that is very, very real. How we make decisions, micro decisions about who we employ, what we pay, where we're going to locate, how we treat our suppliers, what our messaging and our marketing is. What do we do with our profit? That is all within the gift of the human mind. That's a reason to be happy, is it not? By the end of this presentation, you're going to be dancing like this, right? Whether you like it or not. If I have to come out there and force you, I will do so. There are revolutions taking place all over the world. This is somewhere close to my heart. This is back in the UK, and this is a renewable community energy-owned company. Now, this isn't part of a government initiative. This is people coming together within a community and saying, we're all going to put a small amount of money into something that is going to benefit us all. This is about taking back control of our energy markets and energy systems from multinational corporations, and actually we're going to run our own renewable energy grid. And actually they do that, and they make profit from it, and that profit goes back to meet the needs of people on very, very low incomes. This is a wonderful way to generate energy. And this is a wonderful way to make chocolate. This is a wonderful company called Harry Specter's, and its primary purpose is to create jobs for people with autism. And in the UK, if you have autism, you're 80% less likely to work. Bristol Wood Recycling Project, taking stuff from the waste stream and making good use out of it. Now, many of you might see that I'm wearing quite a funky little belt here today, and I've also got a very nice rucksack over there and a wallet, all made out of waste product. This is fire hose, actually, this belt, my wallet, my bag. It just goes to show that other people's waste can be your free access to raw materials. And that in itself is a very, very good business opportunity. Anyone use Ecosia? Anyone heard of Ecosia? Well done, Birgit. I can see you nodding enthusiastically. Anyone else using Ecosia? Excellent, Eleanor. And others too. A few. But you are social entrepreneurs. My question is, why aren't you all using Ecosia? This is a German social enterprise. Every time you use it, you're not exacerbating inequality by allowing money to go back to Google. What you're doing, every time you use Ecosia, you're planting trees. The profit of every click goes to plant trees. And so far to date, and this is an old picture, 120 million trees. I think it's way beyond that now. If anyone has Ecosia, go on the search engine and tell me how many trees they've planted as of today. Now. Right now. And then you can interrupt me and tell me the number. Fairphone. It's not just about recycling and reusing. Fairphone, anyone got a Fairphone? I used to have a Fairphone, and it used to be, honestly, it used to be like drinking a cup of Fairtrade coffee. It was revolting. But now, this version 5 works beautifully. It's an Android model. It's a modular system, so different parts can be replaced. You can change the camera, you can change the battery, you can change the case. Every element becomes upgradable, downgradable, replaceable. All made with fair trade principles throughout. And we are seeing more and more of these things. Does anyone know who these guys are? I don't know why they're on stage, stealing my thunder. Do you know who they are? Sesame Street. Did anyone know that Sesame Street is a social enterprise? No? Yes, a mixed audience of knowledge here. I'm getting the feeling. Well, Sesame Street was always born back in the 1970s with a very, very clear mandate. And that mandate was bringing education to black American inner city households who were being failed by conventional education. And Sesame Street is a not-for-profit profit venture with a social purpose to help children learn with diversity and with very, very kind of pro-social values and principles embedded throughout. It's a wonderful, wonderful social enterprise, probably the least well-known big brand social enterprises. And you just look at the kind of outputs they put out. And I'm sorry, you just don't see the Muppets doing the same. Boo to the Muppets, hooray for Sesame Street. These are the superheroes of today, and they're still doing incredible work. Their international impact report is inspiring, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they were a for-profit business. Anyone use Who Gives a Crap? Lovely toilet paper, but these new big social enterprise consumer brands that are now really, really succeeding are also now seeing imitators emerge. So in the World Forum last week in Amsterdam, I saw this new one, The Good Roll, emerge as a competitor to Who Gives a Crap. And I have to say, the packaging, the colouring, the marketing, the model is almost the same. And I think as social entrepreneurs, we have to recognise that we don't have a monopoly on fulfilling one good idea. And if you've got a good idea, it's likely that someone else is going to come and imitate you too. But that's okay. There are now 30 social enterprise bottles of water that you can buy. I mean, an absolute explosion in people seeing the simple prospect of buying a bottle of water as a really, really important way to convey a message of change and to generate profit to support social action. What do we do with all those plastic bottles? Well, here we, in South America, see that they can genuinely be repurposed, not just recycled. They can be turned into insulated homes, they can be turned into beds. I'm not sure very comfortable beds, but beds all the same. And there is a new industry and a new opportunity for every entrepreneur to see a solution in every problem. One of the biggest problems, as I mentioned earlier, was the plastics in the ocean. And this whole range of products is being generated and produced from reclaimed plastic directly from the oceans. I think a free raw material once again. There's every opportunity to take the problems that our Earth is facing and to think about how those problems can be opportunities for social entrepreneurs. And the economy is going to be filled with only these sorts of opportunities, because doing business the old way is a bit like, searching using an encyclopedia rather than Ecosia. Right, moving on. There is a job of rewilding to do across our planet. We have to find ways that actually regenerate our Earth and our communities rather than extract wealth and opportunity from them. Rewilding the Earth will also generate huge problems, but I have to just talk about one of the big challenges to achieving the future economy that we need to see. And that's that power and wealth doesn't give up power and wealth very easily. And I think we all recognise that some of our political systems, some of the things that are meant to protect us from exploitation are severely threatened. As a social entrepreneur, of course we want to run businesses, but we also have to acknowledge and recognise some of the big, powerful forces that are out there that we might have to also challenge in the process. This isn't going to be an easy transition. This is going to be a big challenge, and we can't just be social entrepreneurs. We also have to be activists too. But there is hope. We are beginning to see more women in leadership positions. That can only be a good thing. We're beginning to see more women from the Southern Hemisphere take positions of influence. That can only be a positive thing. We have to help each other. We are working in a competitive global environment, but there is nothing to stop us collaborating more, building friendships, partnerships, and actually not turning everything into a transaction. Whilst you're at this event over the next few days, it's great if you can do some good business, but it's also great if you can find someone that needs a favour and help them without any financial transaction. Do a favour for someone that you meet at this event. Now, there is a lot to be done. Inequality, climate change, the redesign of systems and structures, but it all starts with us. Every revolution, every transference, every big shift in the world's history and development has come because of a few committed people working towards a big ambition. So this is a time to be very, very ambitious. This is a time to challenge your own thinking and to really, really amplify the truth that you see around you. There is every opportunity to build a more loving and kind and more sustainable world, but it's going to come only from us working together as a community of social entrepreneurs and social enterprises. I think that's me. I'm almost done, but there is just one other thing that I just wanted to reference while I get this opportunity. One of the people that we met, Eleanor, back in 2014-15 was the amazing Muhammad Yunus. And Muhammad Yunus today is being challenged in his home country of Bangladesh. Muhammad Yunus spoke to me 3 weeks ago on the telephone, and he said to me, "I need your help." How would Muhammad Yunus ever need my help? Well, he's currently facing 20 trumped-up allegations of corruption in his home country of Bangladesh. It's likely that he will go to prison within the next 12 months unless the world makes a big noise in his support. And I would just ask you, very simply, to visit the SE UK website, to sign the open letter that we have written. Anyone is welcome to sign that. Or you can find some of the global petitions being led by people like Barack Obama, that are signed also by people like Bill Clinton and others. We can help Muhammad Yunus protect his legacy. We can help Muhammad Yunus continue to grow his impact. But he does require our collective help. And so take a moment whilst you're here over the next 3 days, think about the prospect of facing prison, particularly in a country like Bangladesh, at the age of 83, and just take 5 minutes. Just look at the petitions, look at the open letter on my website, and please take a moment to support Muhammad Yunus. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much.